Ah, that looks better. Hopefully that's all good. It didn't look as if my mic was working, and hopefully it is now. Thank you, Steph. Yeah, if you could just confirm that you can hear me now, that'd be great. Yay, good. Perfect. Thank you. Right then, let's get going. Last one of 2024. And we are finishing on the hyoid bone, which is the bone that's not attached to anything. Well, no bony attachment anyway, no articulation. And just kind of floats in a sea of muscle and cartilage. So yeah, let's have a look at that. So if you yeah, not heard of it, we did a little intro last week to it, I think it was, where we just described the shape of it and stuff. So we'll have a look at that again. Thank you, Driz. So let's have a look. Here we go. Getting some weird like R2D2 noises in the background there. I don't know whether you guys can hear that or whether it's just me. Okay, so we have got, it's a small U-shaped bone. Let me just get rid of that so you can see everything. Put my arrow there. There we go. Okay, yeah, so hyoid bone, small U-shaped bone, so it's kind of horseshoe shaped. Again, we looked at this last week, and it is the same shape as the thyroid, kind of exactly the same shape. So it kind of forms the roof, if you like, of that piece of cartilage. Morning, Mo. Yeah, situated in the middle of the neck anteriorly and at the base of the mandible, and posteriorly at the level of the fourth cervical vertebra. So if you have a feel of your jawbone, come down, you'll feel some like cartilaginous tissue, and then if you get just have a bit of a prod around, you'll end up being able to feel these two bony points, and those two bony points will be these areas here. Okay, so either side of the body of the hyoid. I know what that is. Bear with me a second. Let me just unplug it. Ooh, otherwise, it's going to do my head in. Okay, I'm back. That would have just pinged for the whole hour. Its anatomical position is just superior to the thyroid cartilage. So we've got thyroid cartilage just here. Then you've got your larynx below that. So it's, I think it was Martin was saying about the Adam's apple and where it is. So it's the kind of like the top part of the Adam's apple. Okay, it's not the bit that is most prominent, but it's part of that whole kind of structure. Yeah, so it's not specifically interconnected to any adjacent bones, and it's considered to be an unconventional bone. So it's not attached to anything, basically. All other bones in the, even the scapula, we think that of that as a kind of unattached bone, but it is attached to the clavicle, and then via the clavicle to the sternum. So even though the scapula is sitting in a sea of muscles, and we have the scapulothoracic joint, where it's not really a joint, attaching it to the thorax, it is attached via muscles, but there is a bony attachment as well. Whereas this, there's nothing. It's literally the cartilage and muscles, and that's it. It's anchored to the anterior triangle of the neck by muscles from the larynx, the pharynx, the tongue, and the floor of the mouth. Okay, so it's attaching to all this area here, but also it attaches, believe it or not, this is one of those good anatomy quiz questions. It attaches to your scapula. So the hyoid bone, so your neck attaches onto your scapula. So I'll show you that as well. And it's often one of the muscles that people miss when you have to list all of the muscles for that are on the shoulder blade. So yeah, hopefully you won't forget it. So the name derives from the Greek word hyoides, Hyoidis, maybe, I don't know. Which, if it was spelled in Greek, I might have better chance of pronouncing it. Which means shaped like an upsilon, which is the U or Y shaped letter in the Greek alphabet. Okay, so hence its U shape. Okay, so horseshoe shape. Cool, so that's a little bit about the bone. So let's have a look at that video again from last week. I think this is it. Yep, there we go. Okay, so this is what we saw last time that we had a look. So that's the picture that we've just seen on the PowerPoint. There's the body, and then we've got these horns that stick out as well. So there's there's its relationship to the jaw. So there's no other direct attachments. There's your body. Muscles will attach in there. We'll add these muscles on in a second. So it's curved outwards on the outside and then curved inwards on the inside. So we've got concavity on the inside and convexity on the outside. And then there's the greater horn. And then we've got these lesser horns as well. There's a little joint there because as you swallow it moves, and when you talk it moves. There's the lesser horn. And is that it? I think there's a little bit more to this video. I was going to say I thought there was. Yeah, so again, that's its position in situ. So we feel down from the mandible, and then you should be able to feel the hyoid just there. And it can move in different directions. So we've got up, down, so superiorly, inferiorly, anteriorly, and posteriorly. So up, down, forward, and back. That's all the different directions. And I think that was it. Yes, an abrupt end. There we go. Okay, so that was just a quick revisit of the bone. We did look at that the other day. So we have 7 hyoid muscles in pairs, and they all well, we can group them together, and they do different jobs. So we have 2 that go upward and forward, and you can kind of like work out, okay, I kind of guess where that one's going to attach if it goes in that direction. We've got 1 that goes upward and back. We've got 1 that goes straight up, and we've got 3 that go down. Okay, so we're going to group them into their function, and then we're going to have a look at each of these. Before we do that, just move me out of the way. These will be some useful words because some revisited, some new. So we've got ramus or rami, which means a branch, and we've heard that a million times before. Dorsal means towards the back. Ventral means towards the front. Milo, anything with milo in it, is to do with molar, so to do with your teeth. Di is 2. Gastric means belly, and hence like gastrocnemius. And then we've got omo, which means shoulder. Okay? And you can guess which muscle we were talking about earlier might be have the letters omo in it. Genio to chin, and stylo is a pillar. Okay, so each of those words will be useful for later on when we have a look at the each of these muscles. So the first one we're going to have a look at is the suprahyoids. So these are the ones that are superior to the hyoid bone. So we've got 2 that go upward and forward. And hopefully you guessed, this is where they attach onto. So they're attaching onto the inside of your mandible. Okay, so the origin or one of the attachments is the mandible. So we're looking at the kind of floor area of the mouth. Okay, and then the other attachment is on the body of the hyoid. So that's that bit that was at the front. And it elevates the floor of the mouth. That's what these muscles do. So kind of when you swallow, it will move that hyoid bone. So that's your mylohyoid, which is to do with your molars, which is your teeth. So let's have a look at that one. Where's Milo? There we go. Just get rid of those. Here we are. So this is the mylohyoid, one of the suprahyoid muscles. There we go. Just pause that there. So these are the two mylohyoids. There's your hyoid bone just there. This is the inside of your mandible. So they've obviously taken the skull away so you can look at the on the inside of where your teeth are, and you can see the teeth just there. And then these are the mylohyoid muscles attaching onto the body of the hyoid just there. So let's just play that through. So acts like a stirrup on the bottom of the mouth. So there's the attachment there on the mandible. So we've got the mylohyoid line, and you can see it is like a stirrup or a hammock, and they go downward immediately and then join onto the hyoid there, but they join into each other as well essentially. Okay, so they're both attaching together, and then the fibers then attach onto the front of the hyoid. There's a free border at the back, so it's that's the extent of that muscle, if you like, and a gap between the mandible and the mylohyoid muscle just there. Let's just play that through again. Here we go. So yeah, it's like a stirrup. So we've got downward and medial facing muscles where they join in the middle. So hopefully you can see the direction of the fibers as well. So when you'll get contraction of these, this is why you get that upward movement of the hyoid bone. So that's its attachment on the body just there. And then free border at the back, and there's a little bit of a gap. There it is, in between your mylohyoid and the mandible itself. Okay, cool. So that's that one. That's what that one looks like in real life. You can see it looks nice and neat there, mind you. That's an amazing dissection that they just did. We took a group, took a group to King's College on Friday, just gone, and we did a dissection of a leg, and the guys, I'm sure, if they watch this back and see that image, they'll be like, wow, how did they manage to dissect it like that? Because it's so difficult to do. If you're interested in doing that kind of thing sometime next year, give me a shout. We'll be arranging another date soon. But you have to have done the pro section workshop first. Yeah, you can't just go straight into a lab and do that. It's it's a bit overwhelming. So come to the pro section days first. Then we've got the geniohyoid. So this, remember, genio was to do with the chin. So again, this is attaching onto the mandible, onto the body of the hyoid. We've got depression of the mandible, so bringing the mandible down, or elevating the hyoid if the mandible is fixed. Okay, so that's our next one. Let's have a look at that. Whenever I do this, I always think of Walt Fritz. If you've never heard of him, he's an American guy who specializes in manual therapy for the neck and swallowing disorders and tongue disorders and that kind of thing. So I think that these videos will be useful if you're doing his course. So geniohyoid. So there's your mylohyoid, which is what we've just seen, and there's the genio. Okay, so it sits slightly higher on the mandible. It's on top of the mylohyoid, and there's a little projection at the back of the mandible, and then it attaches onto the, oh, that was really quick, onto the body of the hyoid again. Okay, so there's the mylo, which is what we've just seen, and there's your genio. Okay, so genio equals chin, and then it's attaching. So just above where the mylohyoid attaches on the hyoid bone, just there. There you go, just on that bit there. Okay, so again, with the orientation of the fibers and the positioning of the attachment points, you can see when that muscle contracts, it's either going to pull the mandible down or it's going to bring the hyoid up. It's going to one of the two, depending on what you're doing. Okay, and then we've got one that is directly up, which is a pulley. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. This is the stylohyoid. And remember, stylo meant a pillar, and it's because of where it attaches, and it's attaching really quite high on the cranium. Okay, so up around this area here, so that there's a little projection, which is well, like we call it a stylus. You know, like the record on a needle, the needle on a record player is called a stylus. Yeah, so it's that kind of projection coming down. So just this tiny, like bony pencil, like tiny little thing, and then it attaches onto your hyoid bone, just there. Yeah. Yeah, so it's we've got an upward direction, but not upward and forward like the other two. Yeah, we can you can see the direction of this one. So this is the styloid process of the temporal bone. So the temporal bone is on the side of the skull, and there is a little styloid stylus. Okay, so it's like a little bony projection. And then it attaches onto the body of the hyoid. And because you obviously can't move the cranium, so it's not going to be able to open the mandible, the cranium is fixed, so it's only going to act on the hyoid, so it'll be able to lift that hyoid up. So let's have a look at that stylo. There we go. So here we are. So there's the styloid just there. There's your mandible. Look at that. It's like a tooth sticking down. And then there's the styloid. Or stylohyoid, sorry. It's mad. This is the really cool thing. This kind of sets you up for another one in a second. There's a gap in this muscle here for another muscle to go through. Okay, so this will pull the hyoid bone, so that's where it's attaching, so a little bit further back than the body. Let's just go back and do that one again. So there's your styloid process. There's your hyoid bone, mandible just there, and there it is there. Stylohyoid muscle, and it's got a split in it because the muscle is going to pass through that in a second. I'm going to have a look. So there's an opening there for another muscle. And again, because of the orientation of the fibers, it's going to pull it up and in a backwards direction as well, if it acts on its own. Yeah, mad as that. Really thin muscle from your neck going to behind your ear. Okay, all the way up there. It's going to be quite deep muscle in terms of kind of the structures of the neck, because there's not much around there, right? In terms of kind of like layers of protection. So it's yeah, it's you won't be. I mean, it's so thin. So it's one of those that you're not going to be able to palpate it. But if we have a look, it's kind of like passes by your angle of your mandible, which is this bit just here. Yeah, so you can see it's just behind there. Yeah, there's the opening there, which is around about there. So we'll have a look at that in a second. And then up onto the styloid. So there's your styloid. And then there's the attachment on the hyoid. Cool. Just fascinating, I think, all around this area. Like, why have we got 7 muscles attached to a floating bone in the middle of nowhere? Okay, and yeah, so upward and backward, we've got digastric. Now we've just been kind of introduced to this one from the last one, because it mentioned it on the video. But where the gap is in the stylohyoid muscle, and there was that opening, the digastric muscle passes through it. Okay, so if we have a look at, so digastric means two bellies, and there are two bellies on this one. So we've got one up here. Let me just move me out of the way. So we've got this one up here, and then there's a tendon that then joins into another muscle just there, and then onto the back, onto the kind of undersurface of the mandible. Okay, so yeah, posterior belly goes onto the mastoid process, which is the where the sternocleidomastoid attaches, so just behind your ear, and then the anterior belly attaches onto the mandible. Okay, so right at the bottom of your jaw, and then there's no kind of attachment. We've got this intermediate tendon, so there's a tendon between the two, and then like a little attachment onto the hyoid bone just there. So we've got depression of the hyoid and elevation of the mandible, potentially, again depending on which bit's fixed. So let's have a look at the digastric. Just fascinated by the kind of intricacies of this muscle. So two bellies, digastric, and there's one of them. So there's your styloid from before. There's the mastoid process. So posterior belly here, and then it will pass through your stylohyoid. There it is there. Okay, so it's going through it there. There's a little digastric notch around the mastoid process. But there it is there. Can you see it passing through that muscle? And then it will come all the way through. So the tendon passes through the stylohyoid. There it is. Slip of connective tissue onto your hyoid. So just onto that. And then all the way to the kind of undersurface tip of your mandible, just there. Okay, so quite superficial, this one. There's the attachment just there, look. That's definitely worth another watch. Let's have a look at that again. So remember, digastric two bellies. So we've got this posterior belly just here, mastoid process up there. There's the anterior belly just there. It goes through the stylohyoid muscle. And then there's the attachment there on the mastoid. Okay, so it will come through, and then it is kind of like kept in place by this bit of connective tissue on the hyoid as it passes through. So there it is going through stylohyoid just there, and there we go. So there's the connective tissue that keeps it in place, attaching just on the corner of the body, and then the anterior belly coming forward onto the bottom of the mandible just there. That's fascinating, that muscle. It's just mad, isn't it? But how it developed in that way, to have two bellies and then go, do you know what, we need to go through that muscle so it creates an opening in that one as well. It's just mad. Okay, so that was your digastric muscle, and so that's all your suprahyoids. Okay, so the ones that are superior to the hyoid bone. So the ones that are attaching onto your skull, they're attaching onto your mandible. Morning, Martin. Good morning. It certainly is. Yeah, it's just absolutely fascinating. That is, and again, you know, must be that way because it has a certain purpose, and you know, it's just mad, absolutely mad. So next we're going to have a look at the infrahyoids. So these are the ones that are inferior to the hyoid bone. So if you think about where they're going to attach, they've got to be around this kind of like clavicular, sterno area. Remember, there's that one that attaches onto the shoulder blade as well, onto your scapula. So 3 downward pulling muscles. Here's the one that attaches onto your shoulder. Okay, so this is called the omohyoid. Again, it's split into two muscles. Yeah, so we've got there's a tendon in the middle of this one as well. So we've got a superior belly and an inferior belly. So the inferior belly goes to the superior border of the scapula, and there's a little notch in there, and it attaches just to the medial side of that notch, and there's some nerves that pass through that notch, which are important. And then and we'll look at that when we get to the shoulder. And then superior belly is the intermediate tendon. Okay, so we've got this intermediate tendon, and then obviously up onto the hyoid. So the attachment for the inferior part is the tendon, and then superior up onto the hyoid. So we've got hyoid bone here, superior belly, tendon, and then from the tendon onto the top of your shoulder blade. Okay, so little notch on your scapula. So let's have a look at that one. Ooh, we need to do this one. We're in a group. Sorry, we need to do all these three together because they're all in a group. Hold on. So the next one, so these are all downward. So infrahyoids, pulling the hyoid bone downwards. So this one is the sternohyoid, so obviously attaching onto the sternum and the hyoid bone. So onto the sternum and clavicle and the hyoid, and it will depress the hyoid. Okay, so that's number 2. And then the third one is this one, which is the thyrohyoid. So this attaches onto the thyroid cartilage. So just underneath where the hyoid bone is your thyroid cartilage. But it will attach onto the undersurface of the greater horn, which is this area here, that kind of projection out of the side. It will depress the hyoid bone or elevate the larynx, depending on, again, which bit's fixed. And those are your 3. Okay, so let's have a look at those. Let's get the right video again. Here we go. So thyrohyoid, sternohyoid, and omohyoid, all together. Here we go. Okay, so let's just pause that there. Quick orientation. Try not to do that again. Held the wrong area of the arrow. Here we go. So hyoid bone just here. You can see the one of the greater horns just here. There's your anterior belly of your digastric. And then we can see these muscles coming down off of the bottom of the body of the hyoid. Okay, so that's where we're focusing on these ones. So omohyoid, this one is going towards your scapula. Okay, so that's going to attach onto the scapula. And you can see the attachment point on the undersurface there. Sternohyoid is going down towards the sternum, obviously. And then this one here is the thyrohyoid. So this one's attaching from the hyoid bone onto the thyroid cartilage. So all of them will attach onto the bottom part of the body of the hyoid bone. And they kind of like, yeah, as you can see, kind of splay out like a fan. So there's your thyroid cartilage just there. So it's exactly the same shape as your hyoid bone. And then this is what it all looks like together. So there's your thyrohyoid. And then if I just pause that there is another muscle that, but it doesn't attach onto the hyoid bone directly. The thyrohyoid is only quite small, so attaching from the hyoid bone onto the thyroid cartilage. And then there's another muscle that then it changes into the sternothyroid. So it goes from the sternum to the thyroid cartilage. Okay, so it's, I guess you could say it's a continuation, but there is a bit of a separation between the two. Okay, so you got the thyrohyoid into the sternothyroid. Okay, so that one there, so that's quite deep. muscle. So all on the front there. So thyrohyoid onto the thyroid cartilage. And then sternothyroid is then continuation of that muscle, but attaching on the inside of the sternum. Okay, so right down here. So it's kind of going inside onto the top. And then a bit more superficially. So there's your omohyoid, sternohyoid. So these are on the inferior part of the body of the hyoid. There it is there. So sternohyoid, and again attaching onto the back of the sternum just there. And then your omohyoid, there it goes there. So there's the clavicle, it's been cut. There's your trapezius, it's going underneath there, look. Or your brachial plexus will be around there as well. Again, we'll talk about that as we get to the shoulder. So there's the attachment there. Ooh, let me just rewind that. Pause that at the right bit. So you can see the different layers, which is really useful. There's the notch. Okay, so that's your suprascapular notch, and then that's where your omohyoid will attach there. And like I say, there's some there is a little like ligament that goes across that notch, and then there's some nerves that come through there. Again, we'll cover those when we get to the shoulder. So that's the attachment there for the omohyoid. Yeah, so that's a really good image actually, because look at all the muscles that attach onto your scapula. Yeah, biceps, trapezius. This is the one that everyone forgets. Omohyoid, supraspinatus, levator scap, rhomboid, major, minor, infra, latissimus dorsi, teres major, teres minor, triceps. Yeah, all of those. And then we haven't looked at the anterior part of it, of the scapula either. So there's even more on the front. Yeah, loads of muscles attaching onto this shoulder blade. But your omohyoid, so your shoulder blade, attaches into your throat, which is just crazy. Okay, let's have a look at that again, because there was quite a lot of information there. So we've got omohyoid going off towards the scapula, sternohyoid down towards the sternum, and then on the inside your thyrohyoid for the thyroid cartilage. So we've got the attachment points on the inferior part of the body. And then there's your thyroid cartilage again. Hyoid bone above it. And then this is it in situ. So all this yellow stuff is fat all around here. Changes into the sternothyroid, that hyoid muscle, as we've said, because it's not attached onto the thyroid, onto the hyoid. That's why we didn't include it in this session. But then that goes through onto the back, so the posterior aspect of your sternum. And then these are the bit more superficial. So there's your omohyoid, sternohyoid. And again, attachments onto the hyoid bone. Sternohyoid down onto the posterior aspect of your sternum. And then the omohyoid coming round laterally underneath your trapezius, and then onto that little area by the suprascapular notch onto your scapula, just up there. Cool. And that is it. That's it for 2024. Let's just get rid of that. Cool, all done. Thank you for joining us this year, and we'll be doing the nerves of the neck when we come back in the new year. So we've got 2 weeks off, so it'll be the 23rd and the 30th we'll miss, and then I think it's the 6th where we'll be coming back. So yeah, I will see everybody in the new year. I hope you have a really good Christmas, everyone, and get everything that you want. And yeah, and yeah, have a great time off if you're having a bit of time off. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.